The first explosion didn't shake the palace. It silenced it. Sound died mid-echo. Music cut off mid-note. Conversations froze like statues carved in fear. Then the sky above the Dragon Imperial Hall cracked. Not shattered. Cracked. The atmosphere dome rippled as something forced controlled entry clearance through Imperial security layers that had not failed in 9 centuries. Guards moved instantly. Plasma halberds ignited. Winged sentinels took to the air. They never got the chance to strike. A pulse swept through the hall. Clean. Precise. Every guard dropped where they stood. Alive. Breathing. Unconscious. Not slaughtered. Neutralized. Smoke rolled across polished obsidian floors as shattered doors crashed inward. The banners of the dragon throne, woven from comet silk and flame thread, smoldered at the edges. And in the middle of the ruined entrance stood a single human. No armor. No visible weapon. Just a dark coat dusted with ash. Still. Watching. Across the hall, near the fractured throne dais, a small figure struggled to her feet. Silver scales. Crown crest barely formed. Wings too small to carry her full weight. The Dragon Emperor's daughter. Her golden eyes flicked toward the throne platform. Toward where her mother lay. The Dragon Empress was not dead. But she was bleeding. A shallow cut across her side where an energy blade had pierced ceremonial scales. An insult. A violation. A message. The invading coalition had not come to conquer. They had come to humiliate. The little dragon girl did not cry. Her claws trembled. Her breathing hitched once. And steadied. Outside the dome, shapes shifted in orbit. Cruisers repositioning. Targeting arrays calibrating. The coalition fleet hovered like patient vultures. This was supposed to be swift. A surgical coup. Strike the Empress during diplomatic assembly. Force surrender before the Emperor returned from the frontier. Leave before resistance organized. Clean. Efficient. But they had miscalculated. Because no intelligence report had flagged the human. He had been labeled an observer. A liaison. A symbolic bridge between Earth and the Dragon Empire. Harmless. Decorative. Temporary. The human stepped forward slowly through drifting smoke. His eyes did not go to the fallen guards. They did not go to the cracked dome. They went to the child. The little dragon girl stared at him. For a moment, the hall felt impossibly small. Her voice came out small too. Not royal. Not commanding. Just a daughter. They hurt my mother. No scream. No tears. Just truth. The human did not answer immediately. Because he wasn't looking at her. He tilted his head slightly. Listening. Far above, encrypted signals pulsed through orbit. Command relays flickered across coalition flagships. Kill authorizations bounced through lead chains of command. Weapons were arming. The human's pupils narrowed almost imperceptibly. He knelt until his eyes were level with the child's. Who? He asked softly. She lifted one shaking claw. And pointed upward. At the sky. The human followed her gaze. Silence deepened. Across the system, dormant subroutines buried inside forgotten satellites initiated handshake protocols. Trade buoys shifted frequency. Civilian comm arrays rerouted bandwidth. Ancient code, older than this alliance, came online. In orbit, a coalition gunnery officer frowned. Sir, we're detecting unknown signal interference. On the command deck of the lead cruiser, warning glyphs blinked amber. Then red. Back in the throne hall, the little dragon girl swallowed. Will they come back? She whispered. The human rose slowly. His expression did not change. But something in the air did. The kind of stillness that comes before lightning splits a mountain. They already did, he replied quietly. Above them, the first fleet went dark. In orbit, confusion lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then panic began. The lead coalition cruiser attempted to reroute auxiliary power to its weapons grid. Nothing responded. Not because the systems were damaged. Because they were no longer listening. On the command deck, holographic interfaces flickered violently before collapsing into static. Targeting reticles dissolved midlock. Navigation projections froze in place as if time itself had stalled. Manual override, the Admiral barked. Engineers slammed physical switches. Hardline ignition keys turned. Backup reactors spun up. And immediately shut down. One by one, fleet icons on the tactical display dimmed. Not destroyed. Not drifting. Simply, offline. Across 73 warships. Back inside the Dragon Imperial Hall, the air still smelled of ozone and cracked stone. The little dragon girl stood rigid beside the fallen empress, golden eyes reflecting the faint light of the fractured dome above. The human did not look rushed. He did not look surprised. He looked like someone who had just confirmed a calculation. Palace technicians scrambled to restore internal communications. Unknown encryption cascade detected. It's piggybacking through civilian satellite networks. That's Terran architecture. A dragon general turned sharply toward the human. What have you done? The human's gaze remained upward. Corrected a mistake. The general's wings flared in warning. You had no authorization. The human cut him off gently. They injured a protected sovereign. That word hung heavy in the chamber. Protected. The Dragon Empire had not formally requested military assistance from Earth. There had been no declaration of mutual defense activation. But there had been something older. Something quieter. A clause buried in interspecies treaties drafted after the Ashfall Accords. Protection of minors under shared diplomatic residency. The dragon girl's small claws tightened around the edge of her mother's ceremonial mantle. In orbit, the coalition flagship attempted emergency communication to allied fleets. The transmission never left the ship. Because it was intercepted before it formed. A calm, measured voice replaced their outgoing signal. You are advised to power down. The admiral stared at the console in disbelief. Trace that signal. A lieutenant's voice trembled. Sir, it's everywhere. And it was. Hidden within trade relays. Embedded inside economic monitoring satellites. Sleeping within disaster response beacons. For decades, Earth had participated in galactic infrastructure projects. Offered assistance. Shared technology. Integrated systems. Helpful. Reliable. Unthreatening. And all of it had been layered with redundancy protocols. Failsafes. Backdoors that were never meant to be used. Until now. In the palace hall, the little dragon girl looked up at the human again. Are they falling? She asked quietly. He glanced down at her. No. Above them, 73 warships hung suspended like insects caught in amber. Weapons locked. Engines disabled. Command chains severed from their own fleets. A coalition destroyer attempted to fire a kinetic rail round using stored capacitor energy. The projectile never launched. Because the firing solution was rewritten mid-sequence. On the flagship, lights dimmed to emergency crimson. Then went out entirely. Darkness flooded the bridge. Life support remained. Gravity remained. Nothing else did. Back on the throne dais, the Dragon Empress stirred weakly. Medics rushed forward now that the immediate threat had paused. Not ended. Paused. The Dragon General stared at the human with dawning realization. You embedded control access into galactic infrastructure. The human didn't deny it. We embedded stability. That is not stability, the general growled, gesturing toward the sky. The human's voice remained level. It is restraint. In orbit, the final cruiser icon faded from active status. Silence rippled through the system. No explosions. No debris fields. No triumphant broadcasts. Just absence. The little dragon girl exhaled slowly. Is it over? The human studied the frozen fleet for a long moment. No, he said quietly. Then his eyes hardened. Now we find out who gave the order. Far beyond the disabled armada, deep within coalition command space, secure relays began receiving something unexpected. Data packets. Financial transfers. Authorization logs. Chain of command signatures. Someone, somewhere, had pushed an illegal strike against an imperial sovereign during diplomatic assembly. And the humans had traced it in seconds. Inside the palace, the Dragon General felt it then. Not fear. Understanding. The human had not come to wage war. He had come to end one. Above the shattered dome, 73 fleets waited in enforced silence. And across the galaxy, powerful leaders began to realize. They had just attacked the wrong child. The silence in orbit did not spread by accident. It spread by design. 73 coalition warships hung above the dragon homeworld like statues carved from shadow. Running lights flickered weakly. Emergency power hummed. Crew members moved through corridors lit only by backup strips along the floor. Weapons remained cold. Engines refused ignition. Command authorization loops returned the same message over and over. Access denied, sovereign protection protocol active. On the flagship bridge, the coalition admiral gripped the edge of his dead console. This is an act of war, he whispered. A communications officer shook his head slowly. No, sir. Across every screen, a Terran encryption signature pulsed once more. A voice followed. Calm. Measured. Unhurried. You are mistaken. The signal did not come from one source. It came from everywhere. Trade satellites. Weather buoys. Civilian transport relays. Emergency response grids. Systems the Coalition itself had helped fund and expand. Human engineers had built them to ensure galactic prosperity. Human engineers had also made sure they could never be weaponized against a protected world. On the Dragon homeworld below, palace medics sealed the Empress's wound. Her breathing stabilized. Her scales shimmered faintly with healing heat. The little dragon girl stood near the edge of the cracked throne dais, watching the human. He was not triumphant. He was not angry. He looked focused. The dragon general stepped forward, wings folded tightly against his back. You have immobilized a full Coalition strike force, he said carefully. What happens next? The human finally looked at him. That depends. On what? On whether this was stupidity, the human replied evenly, or intention. In orbit, the Coalition flagship attempted a desperate maneuver, a cold start reactor bypass requiring physical access to the engineering core. Crew members reached the control chamber. They found the system intact. Undamaged. Operational. It simply refused to acknowledge their authority. Because their authority had been overwritten. Not erased. Reclassified. Every hostile vessel had been digitally reassigned as detained. Not destroyed. Detained. On the flagship bridge, the Terran signal returned. You violated Imperial sanctuary during diplomatic assembly. Data streams flooded command terminals. Time stamps. Order confirmations. Encrypted priority tags. The illegal strike authorization glowed at the center of it all. A single name attached. The Admiral felt his stomach drop. That wasn't cleared by the full council, he murmured. No, the human voice confirmed. It was not. Back in the palace hall, the little dragon girl approached the human again. Her claws were steady now. Did you hurt them? She asked. He knelt slightly so he wouldn't tower over her. No. Above them, a Coalition destroyer attempted to redirect internal comms through short-range optical signaling. The light pulses never completed their sequence. Because the human network intercepted even that. Not violently. Simply, comprehensively. The dragon child tilted her head. Then what did you do? The human glanced toward the fractured dome where the fleet hung motionless. I made sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. The dragon general exhaled slowly. You could end them, he said. It wasn't a question. The human's eyes flicked upward again. Across the system, every captured warship now displayed a single message on internal panels. Awaiting stand-down confirmation. No, the human replied quietly. We don't end fleets. In distant Coalition space, senior political leaders began receiving emergency transmissions. Not threats. Evidence. Financial irregularities. Private communications. Proof of an unsanctioned coup attempt disguised as a strategic strike. The human voice echoed once more across the immobilized armada. You will power down fully. You will surrender command authority. You will await lawful review. There was no anger in it. That frightened them more. Inside the palace, the Empress's eyes finally opened. Weak. But aware. Her gaze found her daughter first. Then the human. Understanding dawned quickly. You answered, she whispered. The human inclined his head respectfully. She asked. Outside, the final active command core on the flagship flickered. Then shut down permanently. The fleet was not destroyed. It was finished. The little dragon girl stepped beside the human and looked up at the silent sky. So that's what humans mean when they help. He considered the question carefully. Then nodded once. Yes. Across the galaxy, military analysts would later study the event in disbelief. No planetary bombardment. No counterstrike. No war declaration. Just a system-wide rewrite that turned an invading armada into evidence. The dragon general looked at the human with something close to awe. You didn't fight. The human's voice remained calm. We didn't need to. Above them, 73 fleets waited, powerless, intact, and utterly aware that their survival now depended on mercy. And for the first time since the dome had cracked, the dragon homeworld felt safe. The sky split with fire. Not from weapons. From arrival. Clouds ignited gold as a colossal silhouette descended through the upper atmosphere, wings spanning kilometers, scales reflecting starlight like molten armor. The Dragon Emperor had returned. His war form did not glide. It fell like judgment. Shockwaves rippled across the capital as he landed in the palace courtyard, claws carving trenches into obsidian stone. Heat rolled outward in waves. Windows shattered for miles. He expected invasion. He expected bombardment. He expected to see enemy ships raining destruction from orbit. Instead, he saw silence. Above the fractured dome, 73 coalition warships hung motionless in space. No weapons fire. No engine burn. No evasive formations. Just, suspended. Frozen. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. That was wrong. He surged forward into the Imperial Hall, aura flaring, a pressure so immense that lesser beings would have collapsed under it. But inside the hall, he found his daughter standing. And a human beside her. The Empress lay on a medical platform, stable but pale. He rushed to her first, lowering his massive head until their foreheads touched briefly. Her voice was faint. "I am not dying," she whispered. Relief flickered across the Emperor's ancient eyes. Then he turned. Slowly. To the human. The little dragon girl ran to her father, clutching one massive talon. "They hurt Mama," she said again. The Emperor's gaze lifted toward the shattered dome and the motionless fleet beyond it. "I can see that," he rumbled. The air trembled as his fury gathered, a solar storm barely contained. His wings expanded slightly, casting the hall in shadow. "You stopped them," he said to the human. It was not gratitude. It was assessment. The human stood straight, hands at his sides. "Yes." "How?" "By removing their ability to continue." The Emperor's eyes flared brighter. "You crippled an armada in minutes." "Yes." "You could have destroyed them." "Yes." Silence pressed down on the hall. The Dragon General stepped forward cautiously. "Majesty, the human systems intercepted the coalition fleet. Every hostile command authority has been isolated. The strike order has been traced." The Emperor's gaze sharpened. "Traced?" The human nodded once. "The attack was not sanctioned by their full governing body. It was authorized through a private chain. We have already transmitted the evidence." As if summoned by his words, palace displays flickered to life. Across multiple coalition worlds, emergency political sessions were unfolding. Arrests were being made. Commanders detained. Financial accounts frozen. Leaked communications exposed. The Emperor studied the feeds carefully. "You are dismantling them," he observed. "No," the human replied calmly. "They are dismantling themselves." High above, a coalition dreadnought attempted to initiate a self-destruct protocol. The command failed. Terran security layers intercepted it before the countdown began. The human spoke without looking up. "We will not allow escalation." The Emperor's wings folded slightly. "You assume authority over their fate." The human met his gaze evenly, a mortal standing before a being older than empires. "No. We assume responsibility for ours." The little dragon girl looked between them. "Will they come back?" she asked her father. The Emperor studied the sky once more. The fleet was helpless. Not burning. Not shattered. Just, detained. He understood then. This was not retaliation. It was control. Measured. Precise. Terrifying. The Emperor lowered his massive head until his eyes were level with the humans. "You could rule this system by sunset," he said quietly. The human did not blink. "We don't want it." "Why not?" "Because ruling through fear creates enemies," the human answered. "And we prefer neighbors." Another silence. Heavier now. The Emperor finally let the storm inside him settle. "Release them," he commanded. The human shook his head slightly. "Not yet." A flicker of heat sparked in the Emperor's throat. "You defy me in my own hall?" "I protect your daughter," the human replied calmly. "And I ensure this never happens again." A new transmission echoed through the palace. Coalition High Council leadership, shaken, pale, furious, publicly denouncing the rogue strike faction. Emergency accords proposed. Formal apology drafted. Military de-escalation initiated across multiple sectors. The Emperor watched it unfold. Slowly, his claws relaxed against the stone floor. "You turned an invasion into a confession," he murmured. "Yes." The little dragon girl squeezed her father's talon. "He helped," she insisted. The Emperor looked down at her. Then back at the human. "I see that." Outside, the first coalition vessel powered down completely under Terran supervision. Weapons offline. Command authority surrendered. One by one, across orbit, 73 warships entered compliant standby. Not broken. Not burning. Contained. The Emperor rose to his full height once more, wings folding behind him like closing gates. You did not wage war, he said. No. You ended one. The human inclined his head slightly. Yes. Above the dragon homeworld, fleets that had come to humiliate now waited in disciplined silence. And for the first time in galactic history, the Dragon Emperor understood why humanity was considered peaceful. Because they only acted like this when a child asked for help. The surrender was not dramatic. There were no burning wrecks. No final stands. No last, defiant speeches broadcast across the stars. It was paperwork. Confessions. Signatures. Public accountability. Across coalition space, emergency tribunals convened within hours. The rogue strike authorization was traced, verified, and exposed in full. Admirals were stripped of command. Political sponsors resigned before they could be arrested. Private communications, once hidden behind layers of encrypted arrogance, were projected onto galactic news feeds for all to see. The official statement came 71 hours after the fleets had gone dark. The coalition formally apologized to the Dragon Empire. They acknowledged violation of imperial sanctuary. They accepted reparations. They agreed to permanent non-aggression accords. Above the Dragon homeworld, the 73 immobilized ships powered down completely and transmitted surrender keys to Terran oversight. Only then did the human release system control. Engines returned. Lights flickered back to life. Weapons remained locked by treaty. The fleet did not fire a single shot on departure. They left quietly, escorted by their own shame. Inside the Imperial Hall, repairs had already begun. The fractured dome was being reforged with reinforced shielding. Banners were rewoven. Stone was replaced. The Dragon Empress stood once more beside the throne, her wound healed, though the scar remained faintly visible beneath silver scales. The Emperor watched the sky through newly restored glass. Your systems could have destroyed them, he said. The human stood beside him, hands folded calmly behind his back. Yes. You chose not to. Yes. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. Why? The human's answer came without hesitation. Because annihilation solves the present. He looked toward the dragon child training across the hall, practicing controlled flame bursts under supervision. Prevention solves the future. The Emperor's gaze softened as he watched his daughter. She no longer trembled. She no longer whispered. She moved with focus now. With discipline. With memory. A young dragon scholar approached later that evening, clutching data tablets filled with fleet telemetry and Terran code analysis. He bowed deeply before the Emperor. Majesty, our analysts confirm it. The humans infiltrated coalition infrastructure decades ago. Redundant failsafes embedded in shared systems. They could immobilize almost any fleet connected to galactic trade networks. The scholar hesitated. If they can do that, why don't they rule the stars? The Emperor did not answer immediately. His eyes lifted toward the human ambassador, who now stood quietly near a column, speaking softly with palace engineers about reconstruction logistics. They do not rule, the Emperor said slowly, because they do not seek control. The scholar frowned. But they possess overwhelming leverage. Yes, the Emperor replied. And they use it sparingly. Across the hall, the little dragon girl approached the human again. Are you leaving? She asked. Soon, he said. She looked up at him seriously. If they come back. They won't, he replied gently. How do you know? The human glanced upward one final time. Because every military database in the galaxy now contained a new advisory classification. Terran response tier, child protection, absolute. He looked back at her. Because now they understand. She nodded, satisfied, and returned to her training. The Emperor stepped closer to the human. You altered the balance of power today, he said. The human shook his head slightly. No. What, then? We clarified it. A final system-wide bulletin echoed across interstellar networks. All signatory states reaffirm sovereign sanctuary protections. Violations will invoke immediate multilateral response. It did not mention Earth. It did not need to. Fleets across the galaxy updated engagement protocols quietly. If dragons roared, prepare defenses. If empires mobilized, assess threat levels. But if a human stood beside a crying child, stand down immediately. No debate. No escalation. No delay. As Terran vessels departed Dragon space days later, the Emperor watched from the highest balcony. "You have my gratitude," he said. The human inclined his head. "You have our respect." And in the deep silence of orbit, where 73 fleets had once gone dark in a single breath, only peaceful stars remained. Final echo. The galaxy does not fear when dragons unleash fire. It fears the moment a human decides to help.